All right, just make sure everything's working. You want to talk into your microphone real quick?
Talk. I'm talking into my mic.
All right. Uh, we have movement on the mixing display. I don't know what that's called. I'm gonna take the keys out of my pocket because I don't want it to make noise and stuff. Oh, I always take this light off. So we have the boring gray background.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, nice. There's a cat right outside the door that wants to come in here. So I'm going to go check on that real quick. All right, I think we're good. Yeah, I don't know what's going on, but this week, I just can't seem to stay caught up with stuff. I think part of it is, like I had some appointments last week that took some time away from things that I really should have finished up last week so that I would be further ahead. I would start this week further ahead. But I had another appointment. There was the trip downtown that turned into a longer thing.
Yeah, because traffic and stuff.
I tried to reclaim some of that time yesterday, but it didn't really end up working out.
Yeah.
And I'm back into a semi-regular publishing schedule for video production, but I'm also at the very beginning of a new video series for Podia. And what that means is I'm creating a bunch of new assets and stuff like that. So that's all taking me longer than I originally anticipated. So I'm just running behind, and I was gonna, and it's like, stuff just keeps coming up. Like I was gonna go to the store this morning, go grocery shopping, but I got a call right before I was about to leave, and had to do an intake for what I don't know what it's called, like a mental health facility that deals with that helps with diagnoses and stuff like that for a range of things. I'm going to be evaluated for ADHD. Finally, after almost 41 years. So.
Yeah.
Oh, it was, I was kind of complaining about this on Twitter. Yeah, that's what it was. I was complaining about this on Twitter, how it would be really nice if I could just like visit a website or call a number
instead of having to go into a place.
I think I have ADHD.
Yeah.
Can you just set it? Can you? Well, not even that. Like, I understand. Like, they can't just hand out medicine, but can you set stuff up for me and let me know where to be and when?
I see. Yeah.
But you have to.
It's all the administrative stuff.
You have to get a referral from a doctor, so you have to set up the doctor's appointment and go into that appointment, and then you get the referral, and I was like, it took me forever just to like get that initial doctor's appointment set up. And then as I was leaving, I was like, oh, hey, and can I get the number for that place? And they're like, oh no, they're gonna call you. And I don't, in my head, I was kind of thinking like, if I don't get the number and like call right away, it's not going to happen. That's what I was worried about. But I was like, okay, they called me once. I missed the call. And then I was like, I actually got it when we were downtown yesterday. And I was like, oh, I'll call back today because they're open until 7. And then I looked, like I worked and I did a bunch of stuff. And then I finally looked down at my watch and it was like 7:15. And that's when I remembered.
Yeah.
It's like, oh man, come on.
Yeah.
Fortunately, they called me back
again.
this morning. So anyways,
yeah.
All of that to say,
I think as a gift to our boys, we should just have them all evaluated for everything.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't have to do it as adults.
Yeah.
It's just, it's not that, I mean, I don't like labels and stuff, but it is helpful to know about yourself, you know? And to know your own challenges and to know why you might have those challenges. So.
Yeah. I 100% agree. It looks like there's a new, speaking of ADHD, I'm going to be distracted. There's a new interface for Restream, which is the streaming thing we use.
Okay.
So that's pretty cool. And it's got the chat built right into it.
All right.
Well, all right. I know we're running behind.
We are, and I have something I have to get to, so
yeah,
it's making me nervous.
So, and that starts like you need to start in 45 minutes, right?
Yeah, but I haven't eaten anything at all today, so
yeah, I get it. Well, let's jump in then. I'm going to go ahead and start the show.
Okay.
And we'll dive into today's topic. If I can remember what I'm supposed to do. Here we go. Hello and welcome to In the Boat with Ben and Rachel. I'm Ben.
And I'm Rachel.
And this podcast exists to address common creator struggles and provide weekly inspiration for your creator journey. Today we are talking about, and I put it in this order intentionally, we're talking about evening and morning routines.
Yeah.
So the question posed is, are they really necessary? Are they really valuable for creative work? And I think one could make arguments one way or the other, but in general, most areas of our lives benefit from having some kind of routine in place. And so I don't think it's hard to kind of arrive at that conclusion. What's more difficult, I think, especially for people who don't naturally fall into routines, is establishing a routine, knowing what to put in that routine, and finding ways to connect the evening and morning routine, try to wind down your day, start your day off on the right foot, those kinds of things. So I would love to hear you kind of describe your routine and how you arrived at it. Mine is really short.
Yeah.
So I'll go first. I have a routine, but it's very, very simple, and it's not on purpose. It's the bare minimum
of what you would call a routine.
Of what I would call a routine. That and I should back up and say I don't have an evening routine at all. And I really want one. I'm telling you, like, I would love to have an evening routine. But at the very least, I have somewhat of a morning routine. And that is wake up, look at my phone for about 10 to 15 minutes, then finally talk myself into getting out of bed and putting on my workout clothes and going to do a workout. And then I get to do all the other fun stuff like have coffee.
Wait, where does make the bed fall in there? Is that before you leave for the workout?
Now listen.
Wait, sometimes it doesn't happen.
It's, yeah, because, and this has been the rule, because I'm like, whoever's the last to leave the bed
Mm-hmm.
has to make it. And it takes like less than a minute.
It does. Sometimes
It's a
I just
really
do it just
easy,
because
but
it's so easy.
usually I've laid in bed staring at my phone, procrastinating long enough that I actually don't have time. Or I tell myself I don't have time to make the bed. I gotta go.
Mm-hmm.
Be 5 minutes late for the workout. So that's my routine. Uh, you know, that's the secret sauce. That's the stuff of success right there. So
Oh.
tell me about your routine.
Well, I have.
Actually, I want to say this too. Because having said all that, I really believe in the power of routines, and a really helpful way to think about it when I have done a decent job of having routines and stuff like that is that um, really the morning routine starts the night before
Mm-hmm.
and has to do with the things that you do to wind down and kind of close out your day so that you get good rest, so that you are more likely to adhere to your morning routine, so that by the time you start your day, you've done all of the things that you want and need to do to set yourself up for success. So I think we're both on the same page about that.
Yeah.
And that's why I put it in that order. So
Yeah.
I'm assuming when you talk about your routine, you're probably starting from when you get ready for bed.
Yeah. I mean, and I will say this, we might get into this later,
Mm-hmm.
but for me, routines are just kind of another habit. And what that habit does is it cues my brain for what's coming next. So even when I am ready to start my creative work, I have a little bit of a routine before I start that creative work because it's like it's the switch that flips on the creative part of my brain. My brain is like, okay, now it's time to write stories.
Yeah.
You know. So I believe in the power of routine and in the power of, embracing those habits around the routine. So, I mean, my bedtime routine, I have, what is it called on the phone? It's like sleep time or something.
Yeah.
So my phone will prompt me at about 7:40 to tell me, hey, it's time to start getting ready for bed,
Mm-hmm.
So I'll go into the bathroom and I'll wash my face and brush my teeth and do all of that stuff. And then I'll do a little bit of journaling before I before I get in bed. And that allows me to kind of decompress all of the thoughts in my head. I'm not going to say it works every single night because there are still nights that my brain is like, won't turn off,
Yeah.
But the journaling, I usually do at least a page. Sometimes I do a little less or a little more depending on the things that are bothering me.
Well, knowing the kinds of things you struggle with in terms of anxiety and that sort of thing, it is kind of a miracle that you're able to manage any nights where you don't go to bed having stuff just churning inside your brain.
Yeah.
And I think the routine is a big part of what helps you accomplish that.
Yeah, because
as a person with anxiety.
Once I'm doing all of that, my brain is like, oh, it's time to shut down. It's time to, relax a little bit. I will say before the phone prompts me as well, I tend to spend at least like between 10 and 45 minutes reading in bed too. So I'm very intentional about like not picking up my phone and doing things on the phone because, sleep is important. So, and that's basically the nighttime routine for me. And then in the morning, as soon as my alarm goes off, I'm not one of those people who can like snooze. So as soon as the alarm goes off, my body's like, okay, it's time to get up. If I try to go back to sleep, my brain is like, but how are you going to have time? How are you going to have time to do all the things you need to do? It's like a running commentary if I try to snooze.
Yeah.
So that can be seen as a not great thing because I don't ever sleep in. But so I get up and I journal first. So I write, between a page, sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less, depending on what I think about. I write a lot about sleep in that morning journal and how well or badly I slept. So that kind of like downloads some thoughts for the day. And then I start getting ready. I put on my running clothes and start getting ready for that and brush my teeth. And then I'm kind of out the door. But all of those cues prepare my body. My body is like, okay, it's about time to run, and so I can feel myself getting ready for all of that. So
Yeah, I really like that idea of cues and priming.
mm-hmm.
And I think in a lot of ways our bodies naturally work on rhythms, and I think in a lot of ways when we establish routines, we're kind of taking some control of that process.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you do something consistently enough over a certain amount of time, like you get up and you sit down and you write in your journal,
Mm-hmm.
but that's something that you do a couple of steps before you get out to exercise. And so already during that time, your body is preparing itself. It's like, oh, I know what comes next.
Yeah.
And so it's pretty cool how that works. And without some kind of routine, I think you're just not, you don't come to whatever the next task is as prepared, and you end up losing time having to warm up, or maybe you never really get into a state of flow. And I think it kind of works, like you talked about with creative work. A lot of these things really, the nighttime routine and kind of winding down. You talked about routines that help you turn a switch on, but I feel like that's also kind of a way that you turn the switch off.
Yeah, definitely. At the end of my workday, I used to do this. I don't do it quite as much anymore, and I need to, because otherwise, when you work from home, it feels like you're just constantly on the clock. There are always things to do. But I was very intentional about shutting my laptop and saying, okay, my work is done, and it was enough. And that kind of primes your brain to be like, okay, now next is family time.
Yeah.
Which was, I found that hugely helpful, and I need to start it up again, because I can feel like my schedule is getting crazy right now, and I can feel the stress and anxiety that happen, and I'm constantly looking for these little moments when I can put in a little extra work and stuff. And it's just like that stuff can, as a creative person, that can take over,
Yeah.
So it's helpful to have those parameters, especially if you're a creative person with a family,
Yeah. Just yesterday, some of our boys went to spend the weekend with grandparents. And so it changed. Normally during, our evening routine, I will cook our dinner, and then we'll have time to do chores, and we'll have an evening library time together as a family. And all of these things kind of happen in sequence. And basically that means that when it's time to start dinner, from then on, like I don't have any more work time. And so I was kind of taking advantage of the fact that the boys weren't here. We didn't really need to make anything big for dinner. And I was like, well, I'll just, I'll keep working. And I found myself working later than I intended to, still not getting as much done.
Yeah.
I was like, these are not productive work hours.
Yeah.
And it's
So
really
weird.
it's really interesting how, like, when you fall into a rhythm and a routine, and then you try to do something outside of that, your body's kind of, it almost felt like my brain was like, what are you doing?
Yeah. Yeah. And I just want to say two things. And one is that when we went to Disney World, I kind of bookmark my days with journaling. So I do it in the morning and then I do it at night. And I did not take my journal with me
Mm.
on that trip. And I feel like next time I'll have to, because, and this could have just been my imagination, or it might actually be a thing, you know, but when I would wake up every morning to do a run before we went out to any of the parks, and every single run felt like a slog to me. Like
Yeah.
every single one. And that, you know, that isn't usually the case. So it was almost like my body was like, wait, what are you doing? I'm not ready for this because you didn't give me the cue, you know? You didn't pull out your journal and journal to where I could, you know, prepare for this.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really interesting.
The second thing I was going to say is, as a family and a large family, I feel like we've had to put routines in place, but they've been really good for us, because I don't know how we would have kept up with everything, like dishes, like something as simple as dishes and sweeping and those kinds of things, if we didn't have some kind of routine in place
Yeah.
with our family.
Well, and also just the intentional time spent together.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the dinner table can be chaotic and frustrating, but also some of our best moments as a
Mm-hmm.
family, and conversations and
Yeah.
laughter and fun are also in those times. And so like you kind of, you never know what you're going to get, but if
Mm-hmm.
you don't set the time aside and make space for that, you don't get the good stuff. And so
Yeah.
that's been a huge benefit of having that be a part of our routine.
And that's also the kind of stuff, as a creative person, that can fill your cup to where you can pour more out, you know?
Yeah. Talking specifically about the evening and morning routines as they relate to our creativity, one of the things that I'm aware of, and I think this is a really simple way to think about it. Your evening routine is the thing that you do to prepare your body and your mind for rest. And again, you know, I'm not one to talk because I don't do a great job of winding down. Fortunately, I'm also the kind of person who once once I lay down, it's rare that like my brain doesn't really.
Yeah, sometimes you're asleep before I am, and I go to bed about an hour before you do.
Yeah. So I'm fortunate in that, but I'm also aware that I'm not getting as much rest as I need. And so
Well, and quality sleep too.
yeah, rest and quality sleep, and that getting proper rest is, it plays a huge role in your ability to be creative. It also plays a huge role in the balance of hormones in your body, um, and the way that you think and process, the way that you react or respond throughout the day. So it has huge implications on your creativity. And so that's one piece of it, is that rest, getting proper rest, depends a lot on what you do prior to going to bed. And some of that also, you know, like there are other factors like the temperature of the room and whether or not there are other lights on, whether or not you've been looking at a screen before you go to bed.
Mm-hmm.
That's something I do. So those are all things that you can also kind of figure out with your routine. The morning routine is, I think, plays the role in our creative work of setting the tone for our day. When I follow the routine that I have, as you know, even as simple as it is, when I follow that routine, I just have more energy. I'm more excited about the day. I'm more open to possibilities. On days that I don't get up early, that I don't work out, that I do something different from like what my normal routine is, I feel like I'm walking through a fog, and I can feel the difference. So I think if you're really trying to make a case for like, should you spend time trying to build those into your life, and do those things affect your creativity? I think they absolutely do. And I think that's the simple way to think about it. It's like getting enough rest and recovery and setting the tone and the energy for your day.
Yeah, and there's some creative thought, or there's some creative thought out there where, sleep deprivation accesses a different part of the brain and helps you be more creative. But even if that is so, it's not a sustainable method. And it will lead to burnout. It will lead to all kinds of, all the things that sleep deprivation can lead to. It's just, it might be okay every once in a while, but it's not a sustainable creative move.
Yeah. I'm a little bit skeptical. I would have to look and see if there
I don't know that anything has been proven scientifically, but
Yeah.
I do know that there are creative thought leaders who talk about accessing that. It's almost like being on ecstasy or something, like when you have the sleep deprivation. And
Yeah.
so, but I feel like it's a dangerous thing, because sleep deprivation is not a great state to be in consistently.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, without getting into, talking about things like psychedelics or anything like that, I think there's some interesting research happening around how creativity works in different brain states.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're talking about consistency
Mm-hmm.
and having consistent time when you exercise your creativity, I think what's most dependable is probably what's also most sustainable.
Yep.
And I guess that's really my opinion more than I can say that's scientific fact, but I think that's been my experience.
Scientific fact also shows the detriment of lack of sleep. So,
Yeah.
I mean, on your body, on your brain, if it's long term, so.
So for someone like me who struggles to make and keep routines, what are some simple things that you would encourage someone to do to try to establish something?
I mean, I guess the most important thing is probably pick something simple, like one thing that can cue your body, So maybe it's like, I mean, most people probably already brush their teeth before bed. I hope you do. But maybe add something onto that. Like, I didn't say this during the thing, but as I'm brushing my teeth, I actually do like a meditation breathing exercise while I'm, brushing, because it's boring brushing and I'm just breathing,
Yeah.
And so that can also help cue the body and give it just a little more space, I would never not say that journaling is helpful. So I don't know, if you can work in a page of a journal, that helps your body and your brain kind of decompress,
I think one of the things that I think is true for a lot of folks who don't have a routine is they maybe feel like, well, I just, my evening goes the way that it goes, and I just have to kind of go along with it, and my morning goes however my morning goes. Like, I have to get up at a certain time because I've got to do this and this, and there's not really any room for me and the things that I want. And I think many of us haven't really sat down and asked the question, like, what do I want my evening to look like?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if there was all the time in the world and I could choose exactly what I wanted to do, and nobody else could ask anything of me during that time, in the evening and in the morning, what would I do? I think that's a really great exercise, and could also, give you some, open up some creativity when it comes to how an evening routine would look for you, and how that would be different from somebody else's.
Yeah.
But I really like what you said about like picking. You were talking about more in terms of like picking a single cue, but
Yeah.
it's common advice when it comes to habits is like
Yeah.
don't
Just pick
try to
one
do
thing.
don't try to do everything. So like you imagine this thing for yourself. Don't try to do every single thing on that list starting out immediately. Say,
Yeah. You're
okay,
just gonna fail if you do that.
what's of all of these things that I would really like to do, what's the one habit that like I could start building right away? That would
Yeah.
be easy and that would make me feel like, okay, at least I did this one thing for myself.
Mm-hmm.
I think that can be really powerful. And then when that's established, building on that.
Yeah.
Again, I'm like, I hate talking about this when I'm like, I should have,
Well,
I should have looked ahead at the episodes and like 3 weeks ago, I should have been like, okay,
started. Yeah, I got
gotta,
it.
gotta get this in place.
Yeah. Well, I think that's why I give the advice that I do about picking one thing, because that's kind of your
Mm-hmm.
that's your trademark, is you're just like, I'm going to change everything today.
I'm going to read for 15 minutes and then I'm going to brush my teeth while I do a meditation. And then I'm going to journal for 10
Yeah,
minutes.
no.
And then I'm going to set out my workout
when
clothes. And then,
when I'm talking, oh yeah, I forgot that I do that too.
yeah.
When I talk about habits, I do try to make sure that I say, just pick one habit at a time, because otherwise it feels overwhelming. And especially if you're not used to anything remotely close to the ideal that you have in your mind. So, I mean, it could even be not adding a habit, but dropping a habit. So, you put the phone away and then you go brush your teeth, and your body starts to realize, like, once that becomes habit, then you could add something else if you wanted to.
Yeah. And I think we did an episode earlier this season or maybe last season about habits.
Mm,
I think it may have been last season.
Yeah.
There's a lot of great stuff out there just about like having a more scientific approach to setting up habits for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And one book that I have read that's really good. Actually, I've read a couple. So there's The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg, I think is how you pronounce his name. And then there's Atomic Habits by James Clear. And then I just started reading a new book called Tiny Habits. And I can't remember
Oh wow, Atomic Habits and then Tiny Habits.
Yeah.
That's great.
It's the premise is really similar. Tiny Habits, I think, it's looking to be very practical. So I don't have a great habit of reading though. So I'm a couple of chapters in.
So maybe that's the first thing you do for your evening routine is you trade out the phone for a book.
Yeah, but I love watching my shows.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah. And that's, I don't know, like this is something that I keep meaning to do, but like sometimes the things that you really should let go of, like watching a show on a screen right before bed, is something that it's like, well, no, I really enjoy doing this. It's not like
it's healthy for me.
It's not healthy. I just enjoy it, and so it's not. It can give me some creative inspiration. Like I could justify it that way, but it's just something I enjoy. It's okay to enjoy things.
Yeah.
What I really want to do is what'll make it easier for me to let go of that is to say that I can do that, but I'm going to do it at this time instead, or under these circumstances instead.
Yeah.
That way, when I sit down, like when I'm given the choice, like, do I want to read or do I want to watch something? I can say to myself, oh, you're going to have time to watch that later at this time when it's like, okay to do that. Now is the time that you have set aside for reading.
You know, and I watch things
while
I'm on the elliptical.
In the morning. Yeah.
I mean, it's not when I run or anything, but when I have a longer workout on the elliptical, I'm like, I'm just going to put something on, and that's my reward.
You know, you've been telling me I need to do more cardio. We've got a treadmill. Like
You
that
could totally watch something while
yeah,
you're
that
running.
could be the thing. It's like
You don't have to run outside.
you're only allowed to watch stuff while you're running. I don't know if it would happen then. Oh, we'll see. I'll report back to you and let you know how it goes.
Yeah.
Anyways, there's a lot of great research out there about habits, and so that's kind of that knowledge is what you employ when you're trying to establish a new routine, or get out of a routine that you've been stuck in.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I hope this has been helpful.
Well, can I just share real quick, like the power of routine before I start creative work too. It's not just,
Yeah. I guess.
I mean, this episode is more about morning and evening routines. So
I want to see. I don't think we're getting into specifically routines leading up to creative work, but I think that is a thing that, like establishing and keeping an evening and morning routine is something that also makes it easier to follow through with other routines. So, I mean, I think people would be interested in that for sure.
I mean, I'll just say that I kind of do like a creativity warm up thing. So it's funny, I'll do another journal page or two, and then I'll do a creative warm up. So usually it's like a poem that I'll just, I have some prompts that I have for myself every week, and I'll just pick one of those and do like a short burst, like a 10-minute, it's usually a 10 minutes burst. And then I'll read a little something for about 10 minutes, and then I get started. So that whole routine takes about half an hour. And then it's time for me to like dig into my projects.
Yeah, I like that. You do a lot of journaling.
I do. Yeah. Well, I'm an anxious person, so it helps.
Sometimes what helps me, well, and this is kind of, it's not on purpose all the time, but like when I have other tasks that I have to do that are keeping me from doing the more creative thing I want to do, it kind of builds up this like pent up creative energy, so that when I finally do get to sit down to the thing, I'm like
creative work. Yeah,
you're bursting. You know?
Well, and what the little creative exercise does for me, sometimes it's not a poem. It's like I'll just write a short little, I don't even know what to call it. It's like a scene. It's not even a whole scene from any kind of book I'm working on or whatever, but it's play. So you get to like, I don't know that I'll ever use those for anything, for any story or, but I just get to play. And I think that's really helpful for creative work, to start out with just a little burst of, nobody's going to read this. Nobody's going to see it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a big fan of that. And then a lot of times, I mean, for me, those ideas end up becoming something that I use.
Yeah.
But not having the pressure on it is nice.
Yeah, it is nice.
All right.
That's all I have to say on the matter.
Well, this was good. Yeah, I hope this is helpful for folks who are like me. And then for those of you who already have evening and morning routines, congratulations. And maybe this is just affirmation that, what you're doing is great for your creativity, and keep up the good work. All right. Rachel, where can folks go to find you online?
RachelTolson.com, and I'm at Rachel Tolson on all the things.
And I'm at BenTolson.com and at Ben Tolson on all of the things. And if you want to check out other episodes from this show, you can go to, I'm going to send you to youtube.com at Ben Tolson, I think is, youtube.com/@BenTolson. You can look at the live tab and find past episodes. You can also go to intheboatpodcast.com if I get around to editing some of the episodes. with all of that extra time that I have.
Mm-hmm.
But thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next time. All right, super quick after show.
Yeah. When can people expect edited versions of the podcast?
You know, that's a really great question.
I'm just kidding. I won't ask you that.
Mm,
We're still working on your routine and editing and
it's
all
not
of that.
it's not just that. I think some of the things that are true about, like, you know, my personality and organization,
Yeah.
ADHD, like, I think those things are compounding what's already an overly complicated issue, which is I'm doing too many things.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm frustrated by that because I want to do all of the things.
Yeah.
And, you know, like, I can schedule, I can say, okay, this time in my schedule is for editing.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not gonna actually make it happen. And it's not because I'm like, it's not because I get to it and I'm like, oh, I don't feel like doing it. It's because I'm just too busy.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what the solution is.
Yeah.
That's I mean, you know, that's just the reality. I'm not trying to make excuses.
Yeah.
I'm just.
Yeah.
And then I think another thing that happens, and this is, you know, this is pretty common for folks, is as you get further behind on anything, the idea of
trying to catch up
yeah, feels overwhelming.
It does.
And that's its own kind of resistance.
You got to take one thing at a time.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm constantly behind, but I have like a master list because I'm a list maker, and I just like, I pick out one thing at a time. And sometimes it's just what's next on the list. And it's, you know, the list is in no particular order, but it's like, okay, I marked off one thing and that feels great, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I make lists too.
And then you lose them.
I mean, no, I make them. They're all right here.
Yeah.
So edit podcast episodes on my list.
Yeah.
And that 2 to 3 is my aspirational thinking.
Like 2 to 3 at a time?
During the course of a week.
Yeah. Okay.
Not in a session.
Oh.
But like over the course of a week.
Okay. Well, maybe I can help out a little bit if you want to have me as a consultant. And
so my weekly to-do list in my notes app is broken up into 5 separate categories.
Yeah.
And 5 is like the simplified version of what's really going on, because there are really more than 5 categories of things that I'm doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, and the personal stuff, like, it just keeping up with appointments and taxes, and
it's
our oldest needs to start driving lessons.
Yeah,
and
that's been on my list for a while too. I'm trying to see which of us will get to it first. Yeah.
And then I've got, like, anyways, it's
just a lot. It's a lot when you're a creative person and you have a large family. And
we do have a large family with a lot of moving parts.
Mm-hmm. Everybody always has something.
Yeah.
So
it's hard. It's really hard not to feel like to look at this list and believe I should be able to do all of these things. And this was something I tweeted about recently. Like, I think that's something I remember from way back when I was a kid, having that thought, like, oh, if something is my responsibility to get done, somehow magically I should be able to do it. And if I don't get it done, it's because of some personal failing that I have. And it's not as, like, the older I get, the more I realize it's not as simple as that.
Mm-hmm.
It's no less frustrating, but I think I'm definitely starting to have more grace with myself, and so
Well, that therapy can help with that. So
yeah, I think that's progress.
yeah.
So
All right.
all right, well, thanks again for listening. Got a little bit didn't mean to like leave it on a downer,
Yeah.
but maybe we'll do a longer episode talking about that kind of stuff. All right, talk to you later.